Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into some more fascinating cases with us?
Always.
All right, so today we're looking at two trials that have really captured the public's attention.
Yeah.
The Karen Reed trial and the Chad Daybell case.
Yeah, these cases are really interesting for different reasons. They both kind of show us how our justice system, well, the strengths and weaknesses of it. We're going to be seeing how these like tiny details can be so important.
Right, like one little text could change everything.
Exactly, a text message or even like, a missed phone call or something, those can all become like crucial evidence in a trial.
It's wild. And then on top of all that, we all love a good mystery.
Oh, for sure.
And this Karen Reed trial, it's got enough twists and turns to keep anyone guessing. I mean, it's enough to make a detective scratch their head.
Absolutely.
So for those who might not be totally up to speed, can you give us a quick rundown of the Karen Reed case?
Sure. So the basic situation is that Karen Reed is she's accused of running over and killing her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, after they'd been out for the night.
Okay, and so what's the prosecution's main argument? What are they focusing on?
Well, they're really building their case around her blood alcohol level from that night.
Oh, I see. And what was it?
It was almost 4 times the legal limit.
Whoa, 4 times. That's a lot. So, I mean, I could see why they'd focus on that. But what about the defense? What are they saying?
Well, they're arguing that there's more to the story than just that number. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
They're saying that there isn't enough evidence to directly link Karen to what happened.
Like what kind of evidence are they talking about?
For instance, there weren't any broken bones on John's body.
Really?
Yeah, and the initial reports from the first responders, they didn't even mention a car accident at all.
Huh. Okay, so it sounds like there are some gaps in the prosecution's case.
Yeah, and that's where things start to get really interesting. That's where this guy, Brian Higgins, comes in.
Brian Higgins. Okay, who's that?
He's a friend of the family. He was with Karen and John that night.
I see. So he was at the same like event or whatever.
Exactly. And his actions have kind of raised some red flags.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued now. What did he do?
Well, he claims he went to the police station at around 1:30 in the morning.
Right.
He says he had to move some cars before a storm hit. But here's the thing. He admitted to drinking a lot that night.
Wait, so he drove to the police station after drinking heavily to move cars because of a storm?
That's his story, yeah.
Okay, keep going.
And then, get this, phone records show that he called the host of the after party at 2:22 in the morning.
2:22. It's a pretty specific time.
It is, and it just so happens to be almost the same time that another key witness was making a suspicious Google search.
Whoa, hold on. So we've got him going to the police station after drinking, then making a call at this weird time that lines up with another witness doing something shady online.
Yep, you got it.
Is this a crazy coincidence, or is there something more to it? Like, is this guy involved somehow?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it gets even more complicated.
Oh no, what else?
Security footage from the police station actually shows Brian spending a good chunk of time in the area where Karen's car was being, processed for evidence.
Wait, so there's footage of him at the police station? What was he even doing there?
That's the thing. We don't know for sure. And here's the really strange part. The footage from that specific area is missing. Gone.
Missing. Come on, that's super suspicious.
Right. And it doesn't stop there. The day before he was ordered to, keep his phone and SIM card for the investigation,
Yeah.
he went and replaced both of them.
So he got a new phone and a new SIM card.
Exactly.
Okay, but I mean, couldn't that just be a coincidence? Like maybe his old phone broke or something?
He claims it was because of online harassment from some unrelated case.
Right, online harassment. Okay, so maybe he just wanted a fresh start.
Maybe. But what about his old phone and that SIM card? What happened to them?
Yeah, where'd those go?
He says he destroyed the SIM card, physically destroyed it.
Wow. Okay, so he was definitely trying to get rid of it. What about the phone?
He claims he threw it in a dumpster on a military base.
A military base? Seriously? This is getting a little too movie-like for me. It's like something out of a spy film.
I know, right? It's a lot to take in.
It really is. All these weird coincidences around this Brian Higgins guy are making me think that maybe someone's trying to protect Karen, or maybe even frame her.
It's certainly a possibility. This case has more layers than an onion.
I think you're right. We're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to uncover. But before we dive deeper into all those unsettling coincidences with Brian Higgins, let's switch gears for a moment and talk about the Chad Daybell trial.
Sounds good. This one is just as fascinating, but for totally different reasons. The jury's already reached a verdict in this case.
Oh, really? And what was the verdict?
Guilty on all counts for the murders of his wife, Tammy Daybell, and his new wife, Lori Vallow's 2 children.
Guilty on all counts. Wow, that's a big one. So what exactly led the jury to that decision?
Well, the prosecution, they presented a ton of evidence. Text messages, online searches, even Chad's own words and actions. It all painted this very disturbing picture, you know?
Of what? What kind of picture?
Of manipulation and obsession and this belief system that was just so twisted, it led to this horrible tragedy. They argued that his obsession with like prophecies about the apocalypse and his desire to have this uh what did they call it?
I don't know. You tell me.
A zombie-free world with Lori. That was their motive for the murders.
A zombie-free world. This is getting weirder by the minute.
Yeah, it's a strange one for sure.
So they said he killed his wife and his new wife's kids to create this zombie-free world.
That was the prosecution's argument. And while the defense tried to say that Chad was innocent, that he was just a victim of circumstance, the jury didn't buy it.
Wow. So we've got two very different trials here, both with tons of twists and turns. One is still going on, and the other has this really dramatic conclusion. But is there anything that connects them? Like, are there any similarities at all?
Yeah, there's one thing that really stands out to me in both of these cases. It's the role that technology played.
Technology. How so?
Well, think about it. Text messages, security footage, all those digital traces that people leave behind, that stuff became really important evidence in both trials.
Right, right. I guess it's kind of a reminder that in this day and age, with all the technology around us, nothing is really private anymore. Our actions, even the things we think are private, can have very public consequences.
Exactly. It's a bit of a chilling thought, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
We're all leaving these digital footprints everywhere we go, whether we realize it or not. And in these cases, those footprints led straight to the courtroom.
It's true. And sometimes those footprints can tell a story that we never intended to share. It really is. Kind of makes you think twice, right?
Yeah, it does. So let's get back to the Karen Reed trial. We were talking about all those unanswered questions and those coincidences with Brian Higgins. It's a lot to wrap our heads around. Did the defense present anything to try to make sense of it all?
They did. They actually brought in some witnesses who gave a more, I guess you could say, a more nuanced view of Karen and John's relationship.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so tell me, what did they have to say? What did they reveal?
Well, John's niece and nephew, they shared some observations about the couple's dynamic. You know, they said that Karen and John had been arguing a lot in the weeks before his death.
Oh, really? So there was some tension there.
Yeah, definitely some tension. And the niece even said that she overheard John telling Karen that their relationship was over.
Whoa. Okay, so that's pretty serious. So if there were problems in their relationship, could that be a motive?
It's definitely a piece of the puzzle, that's for sure. And there's more. The niece also described this frantic scene where Karen woke her up at like 4:30 in the morning.
4:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Wow. What was going on?
Well, Karen was urging her to call Jennifer McCabe, the host of that after party.
Oh, right, right. So what happened? Did they get a hold of her?
Yeah, they did. And apparently, Karen's story about what happened that night kept changing during the call.
Wait, her story kept changing. What do you mean?
Like, the details she was giving about the night, they weren't consistent. It was like
Yeah.
she was, I don't know, confused or something.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it was the middle of the night, right? Maybe she was just in shock.
That's what the defense is suggesting. They're saying that it could just be a sign of, you know, the trauma of the situation.
That makes sense. But what about the prosecution? What are they saying about her story changing?
Well, they're arguing that it points to guilt. Like maybe she was trying to hide something, you know?
Ah, okay. So they think she was trying to cover up what really happened.
Exactly. So it really comes down to how the jury interprets it. Do they see it as a sign of guilt or just a natural reaction to a traumatic event?
It's tough to say. It could really go either way. Now, what about that missing footage from the Ring camera at John's house? I remember the defense bringing that up. What was that all about?
Right, yeah. They were basically suggesting that maybe someone had tampered with the evidence.
Tampered with the evidence. Like they think someone deleted the footage on purpose.
That's what they were implying. They raised the question of whether Karen had access to the Ring camera.
So if she had access, she could have deleted the footage herself. Is that what they're saying?
Well, both the niece and nephew testified that she didn't have access.
Okay, so if it wasn't Karen, then who deleted it and why?
That's the big mystery, isn't it? It's like every time we answer one question, two more pop up.
It's true. This case is like a never-ending maze. We just keep going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole.
But hold on, there's also something about security footage from around the city, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. The defense actually called in some city officials who were responsible for, providing that footage to the police.
Okay, and what did they have to say? Well, they confirmed that they did hand over the footage that the police requested, but get this. They admitted that they didn't actually watch all of it.
Wait, they didn't watch it. So how do they know it's all there? How do they know nothing's missing?
They only checked the beginning and the end of the recordings just to make sure that the timestamps matched what the police had asked for.
Oh, so there could be gaps. Like someone could have deleted something in the middle and they would never have known.
Exactly. It's a pretty big oversight, right?
It is. I mean, it makes you wonder about the whole investigation. It seems
Mhm.
like there were a lot of loose ends.
Yeah, for sure. This case has definitely raised some questions about how the evidence was handled.
Well, it wouldn't be a true crime deep dive without some questions about the investigation, right?
That's true. But we can't forget about the medical evidence either.
Mhm.
The prosecution also brought in some medical professionals who treated both Karen and John that morning.
Okay. And what did their testimonies focus on?
Their main focus was Karen's blood alcohol level. Remember, we talked
Yeah.
about that earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 4 times the legal limit. But I thought the defense argued that there's no way to know for sure if she drank more after she dropped John off.
They did, and they're right. But the prosecution used something called retrograde analysis to try and figure out what her blood alcohol level would have been hours earlier, around the time John was supposedly hit by the car.
Retrograde analysis. That sounds complicated. What is that exactly?
It's basically a way of working backward to estimate someone's blood alcohol content at a specific time in the past.
Okay, so they're trying to figure out how drunk she was when she was driving.
Exactly. And based on their analysis, they estimated that her blood alcohol content would have been somewhere between 0.135% and 0.292%.
0.292. Wow, that's really high. Almost 4 times the legal limit.
Yep, that's what they're saying.
So I guess the prosecution is using this to say that she was too drunk to drive safely and that maybe she even blacked out that night?
That's right. But like you said earlier, the defense argues that we can't know for sure if she had more drinks after she left John at the party.
Right. There's no way to prove that one way or the other. It's another one of those unanswered questions that makes this case so tricky.
It really is. It's like every piece of evidence has multiple interpretations, and it's up to the jury to decide which ones they believe.
Exactly. So we've got a high blood alcohol level, but no definitive proof of a hit and run. We've got missing footage, suspicious phone activity, and a whole string of coincidences that just seem too weird to be true.
And we can't forget about the injuries that John sustained. They also play a key role in trying to understand what happened that night.
Right. What did the medical professionals say about his injuries? Did they give any clues as to what might have happened?
Well, they testified that John had a cut above his right eye, some swelling and bruising, and some abrasions on his right forearm.
Okay, so some cuts and bruises, but nothing too serious.
Yeah, and here's the thing. They didn't find any broken bones or fractures below his neck.
Really? That's surprising. I mean, if he was hit by a car, you'd expect more serious injuries than that, wouldn't you?
You would think so, yeah. And to add another layer of complexity, the defense pointed out that neither the medical professionals nor the responding officers mentioned anything in their initial reports about John being hit by a car.
So we've got a lot of conflicting information here. A high blood alcohol level, but no clear evidence of a hit and run. Missing footage, suspicious phone activity, and a trail of coincidences that just seem too convenient to ignore. It's a real head-scratcher.
It really is. This case is a perfect example of why it's so important to look at all the evidence carefully and consider all the possibilities before making any judgments. Remember, everyone is innocent until proven guilty.
It's a lot to process, for sure. It really does feel like we're trying to put together a puzzle, but some of the pieces are missing and some just don't quite fit.
Right, it's like a puzzle with some extra pieces thrown in from a completely different puzzle.
Exactly. So where do we go from here with the Karen Reed trial? What happens next?
Well, the jury's still deliberating, so we'll just have to wait and see what they make of all this. It's up to them to decide what they believe.
Right. Do they think that her blood alcohol level means she's automatically guilty? Or will they consider, that maybe it was just a horrible accident?
That's the question, isn't it? And it all comes down to intent. Did Karen intentionally hit John with her car? Or was it a terrible accident? That's what the jury has to figure out.
It's a tough call, for sure. And then you have those coincidences with Brian Higgins. They're really hard to ignore. It makes you wonder if there's like a bigger story here that we're not seeing.
Absolutely. It all comes down to whether the jury believes those coincidences are just that, coincidences, or if they think they point to something more, something darker, like,
Yeah.
a cover-up, or even someone trying to frame Karen.
Right, right. It's a lot to unpack. So while we wait for the verdict, what do you think these two cases, as different as they are, tell us about, well, about us, about human nature?
That's a really interesting question. On the surface, we see a possible case of, vehicular manslaughter and then a double murder that seems to be driven by this really bizarre belief system.
Right.
But if you look deeper, I think these cases are really about relationships, about the choices we make, and about the potential for darkness that exists in all of us.
Yeah, I see that. The Chad Daybell case, with all that talk about the apocalypse and zombies, well, it's scary. It makes you realize how easily people can be drawn into these extreme beliefs and how dangerous that can be.
It really does. And then the Karen Reed trial, it raises these questions about how we perceive things, how reliable our memories are, and how much weight we put on circumstantial evidence.
That's true.
And in both cases, those digital footprints that we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
they played a huge role. It's a reminder that in today's world, privacy is, well, it's almost an illusion.
It's true. Everything we do online, every text, every email, every search, it's all being recorded somewhere. It can be used to tell a story about us, whether we want it to or not.
Exactly. It kind of makes you wonder what story your own digital footprint would tell, doesn't it?
It does. It makes you think. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into these really captivating and complex cases. We'll definitely keep following both stories closely, and we'll be sure to share any major updates with you.
In the meantime, we want to hear from you. What do you think? Is Karen Reed guilty? What are your takeaways from the Chad Daybell case? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into into the heart of the human experience, seen through the lens of true crime. Until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and remember, the truth is often stranger than fiction.